Hello and welcome to Straight Until Disney, a Disney deep dive and analysis podcast, where each week I, your host Jonathan, takes a deep dive into the history and legacies of each of the Disney films. I'd like to remind you that you can follow me on Instagram at Straight Until Disney Pod, and you can email me at straightuntildisneypod@gmail.com. So this week we're talking all about the three Cambarellos, which is a sequel to Salidas Amigas and continues on with the packaged Disney films that were released in the 1940s. So it's a really interesting film because there's a bit more depth to its legacy and history when it comes to this film than there is for Salidas Amigas. So I do find that really interesting and unique to delve in without. In terms of mousekeeping, there's not really that much news out this week. There'll be another Doomsday trailer at some point getting released today, I would suspect, because we've been getting one every 2 weeks since they've been out in the cinemas attached to Avatar Fire and Ash. So there's that. Downtown Disney's got a new logo for its 25th anniversary. So there's some things that are nitpicky, but there's not like huge news to discuss. So that's why I've really just skipped over mousekeeping. So not Salidas Amigas. The Three Caballeros was directed by Norman Ferguson, Clyde Geronimi, Jack Kinney, Bill Roberts, and Harold Young. As always, produced by Walt Disney, written by Holm Brightman, Ernest Terraz, Ted Sears, Bill Peet, Ralph Wright, Elmer Palmer, Roy Williams, William Cotterill, Del Connell, and James Bodarero. The film stars Clarence Nash, Jose Oliveira, Joaquin Garrer. Music is by Oliver Wallace, Charles Walcott, Paul Smith, and Edward H. Flom. Studios was Walt Disney Productions. Its distributor was RKO Radio Pictures. It was released December 21st, 1944 in Mexico, and then released February 3rd, 1945 in America, and had a running time of 71 minutes. The film is an American animated musical anthology film. It premiered in Mexico City in the year I said, and then it also premiered in the United Kingdom in May 1945. It is the seventh animated feature in the Disney animated canon, as well as the first animated Disney film to be a sequel, as I said, to Salidas Amigas. And it was also the first Disney film to combine live actors, with animated characters, which is something we'll see again across the Disney years with Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Enchanted. It plots an adventure through parts of Latin America, and it is the second of the Disney package films for the 1940s. The film is plotted as a series of self-contained segments strung together by the device of Donald Duck, opening birthday gifts from his Latin American friends. Several Latin American stars of the period appear, including singers Aurora Miranda, sister of Carmen Miranda, and Dora Luz, and dancer Carmen Molina. The film was produced as part of the studio's Goodwill Messages for South America, but is less obvious it is less obviously propagandistic than many of its wartime productions. The film again stars Donald Duck, who is, in course of the film, is joined by his old friend Jose Carioca, cigar smoking parrot from Salidas Amigas, representing Brazil, and later makes a new friend in the persona of a pistol-packing rooster. I'm gonna butcher this. Panchito Pistolas, representing Mexico. It was severely edited and re-released in featurette form on April 15th, 1977 to accompany a reissue of Never a Dull Moment. Production history. There's not too much, but there's enough here to have a real interesting deep dive. The Augustin Lara song You Belong to My Heart was featured in a Disney short called Pluto's Blue Note in 1947. It was later recorded by Bing Crosby. The Ari Barros' song Baja and the title song became popular tunes in the 1940s. The complete Baja sequence was cut from the 1977 theatrical reissue of the film, which is interesting to note, and I think that's quite fascinating to think about in terms of really diving in uniquely to the film as a whole. Don wrote two sequels in 2000 and 2006. As of September 2006, Panchito and Jose Carino have returned at Walt Disney World, where they used to appear for meet and greets. They can only be found outside the Mexican Pavilion in World Showcase at Epcot. Donald also appears with them. So there we're already seeing a much more cemented legacy for this film when it comes to the Disney parks compared to its predecessor. Some clips from this film were used in the Welcome to Rio portion of the Mickey Mouse Disco music video. So there's not really too much to dive into here, and thank you to DisneyWikiFandom.com for being able to get all this. There's much more in depth about its release and critical response, which is what I'm going to come out to in a moment. But we're already seeing that there's already this real inception and deep dive into this film as a whole, and I find that quite unique and fascinating to think about. So, the critical response to the film. The film received mixed reviews when it was released. In his book, The Magic Kingdom, Walt Disney and the American Way of Life, Stephen Watts explains that most critics were relatively perplexed by the technological razzle-dazzle of the film, thinking that in contrast to the previous feature films up to that time displayed more flash than substance, more techniques than artistry. Bosley Crowther, for one, wrote in the New York Times, Disney and his playmates have let their technical talents run wild. Other reviewers were taken aback by the sexual dynamics of it, particularly the idea of Donald Duck lusting towards live-action women. Yeah, I can understand why they were quite perplexed and perturbed by such a thing. As the New Yorker put it in a negative review of it, such a concept is one of those things that might disconcert less squeamish authorities than the Hater's Office. It might even be said that a sequence involving the duck, the young lady, and a long alley of animated cactus plants would probably be considered suggestive in a less innocent medium. Review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes reports that 88% of the critics gave it a positive review based on 15 reviews. So there's not been that many reviews for this film, but in all honesty, it's not a bad film. It's alright. Do I think most people want to watch this? Not really. It's not one of those films that I'm gonna go, oh, I know what I'll watch tonight. The Three Caballeros. But then again, it did its job for the time. For the film's television premiere, Three Caballeros aired as the ninth episode of the first season ABC's Disneyland television series edition, shortened and retitled A Present for Donald for this December 22nd, 1954 broadcast and subsequent reruns. Donald receives gifts from his friends for Christmas instead of for his birthday as in the original. In the theatrical release, the film was severely edited and re-released in feature form on January 13th, 1977 to accompany a reissue of Never a Dull Moment. Specifically, the entire bar sequence was cut. When it comes to home video, the film has been released on VHS and Better in 1982. It was released 1987 on VHS and Better. October 28th, 1994 on VHS and Laserdisc. 1995 release was a Laserdisc exclusive archive collection. It was released on May 2nd, 2000, VHS and DVD. April 29th, 2008 on DVD, the Classic Caballeros collection. And January 30th, 2018, Blu-ray Disney Movie Club exclusive, which I think are the ones in the sleeves. You can correct me if I'm wrong. The ones that I have. The plot of the film. The film consists of several segments connected by a common theme in it. It is Donald Duck's birthday and he receives three presents from friends in Latin America. The first one is a film projection which shows him a few animated scenes. He learns about a penguin that wants to live on a tropical island, a winged donkey, and a documentary on tropical birds. During the documentary, he learns about the Arakian bird. The second presentation is a book given to Donald by Jose Carioca himself. It tells of Salvador, the capital city of Bahia, spelled Bahia in the film, which is one of Brazil's 26 states. Jose shrinks them both down so they can enter the book. They meet up with several of the locals who start dancing. Donald ends up pining for one girl. After the journey, Donald and Jose leave the book. Upon returning, Donald realizes that he is too small to open the third present. Jose shows him how to use magic to return himself to the proper size. After opening, he meets Panchetto Pistol, native of Mexico. They take the name the Three Caballeros and have a short celebration. Panquito then leaves Donald's present, pinata. He tells him of the tradition behind the pinata. Jose and Panquito then blindfold him and have him attempt to break open the pinata, while eventually reveals many surprises. This celebration ends with him being fired away by firecrackers in the shape of a bull. Throughout the film, the Arakian bird appears at random moments. He usually pesters everyone, sometimes stealing Jose's cigar. His most famous gag is when he reroutes the train by drawing new tracks. He later returns in Melody Time. The film's segments include The Cold-Blooded Penguin. It involves a penguin named Pablo reproducing images of the penguins of Tombo in Argentina, along the coast of Patagonia. Pablo the penguin is so fed up with the freezing conditions of the South Pole that he decides to leave to warmer climates. The Flying Iraquito tells the adventures of a little boy from Uruguay, and his winged donkey, Burrito. It is believed the donkey is modeled after hefty Latin lover Don Juan da Gama. Bahia. It involves a pop-up book trip through Salvador, the capital of Brazilian state of Bahia, as Donald Duck and Jose Carino meet up with some of the locals, who dance a lively samba, and Donald starts pining for one of the females played by singer Aurora Miranda. La Piñata. Posadas. The story of a group of Mexican children who celebrated Christmas by reenacting the journey of Mary and Joseph, searching for room at the inn, posada, meaning it's inn, and they are told no pasada at each house until they come to one where they're offered shelter in a stable. It leads to festivities including the breaking of the piñata, which in turn leads to Donald Duck trying to break it as well. Mexico, Patucaria, Veracruz, and Acapulco. Panchito gives Donald and Jose a tour of Mexico on a flying sarap. Several Mexican dances and songs are learned here. Donald seems to be a wolf to the ladies again, tries to gain their affections, but fails. You belong in my heart. The skies of Mexico result in Donald falling in love with a singing woman. The lyrics in the song itself play parts in the scenarios as to what is happening as well. Donald's surreal real Reneville. A kiss, or several to be exact, lead to Donald going into the phrase of it's a drug. This scene is similar to Pink Elephants on Parade for being a major trippy scene. Donald constantly envisions sugar rush colours, flowers, and panjito, and Jose popping in at the worst of moments. The scene changes after Donald manages to dance with a girl from the state of Opaquia, from the Isulfus of Tehuantepec. I've just butchered that. They dance to the song La Sandunga. The girl begins by singing the song while Donald quacking out the rest of the chorus. The drunkenness slows down for a time, but speeds up again when a Mexican girl uses a conductor's stick to make Caquita do just about anything while dancing Pues Jesucita en Chihuahua, a Mexican Revolution trademark song. The scene is interrupted when Panjito and Jose spice things up and Donald ends up battling a toy bull with a wheels on its legs. The catch is that it's loaded with firecrackers and other explosives. So that's really the film in a nutshell. There's not too much to really sit there and discuss about, and that's why this week's once again only going to be a shorter podcast episode, and it probably are going to be the next few a bit shorter because there's not really too much you can say about these films other than that they're brightly coloured, beautifully drawn animations. Yes, there are some questionable things that happen within them, but on the whole, they're beautiful crafted films. And I do think that we need to really take a deep dive into these films as a whole. And I quite enjoy that from film perspective. So when it comes to the Disney Legacy of the Parks, there's a bit more when it comes to these films, to these characters. So the title characters also appear in some of Disney's themed resorts, such as Disney's Coronado Springs Resort, where one can find a topiary of them, and Disney's All-Star Musical Resort, where a fountain depicts the trio in the centerpiece of the guitar-shaped Calypso pool. In February 2001, Jose and Panchito appeared in several episodes of House of the Mouse. In April 2007, the film became the basis for a ride at the Mexican Pavilion at Walt Disney World, Epcot, named Gran Fiesta Tour, starring the Three Caballeros. In June 2018, a TV series, Legend of the Three Caballeros, was released on Disney Live app in the Philippines and is now currently available on streaming on Disney Plus as of 2019. The series serves as a reboot of the Three Caballeros franchise, centering on Panjito, Jose, and Donald, finding themselves inheritors of a heroic legacy and resuming their ancestors' quest with the aid of a valiant Greek goddess. All three of the characters reunite in DuckTales 2017's The Town Where Everyone Was Nice, Season 2, Episode 4, and continue to reappear throughout the show's run, including featuring Jose and Panjito singing a version of the Happy Birthday song in the show's finale, The Last Adventure. Donald Duck is portrayed by Tony Anselmo, Arturo del Puerto as Panjito Pistos, and Bernard de Hola as Jose Carioca. And I think that's really going to be this week's episode in a nutshell, really. Just because I find that there's barely anything really to sit and talk about when it comes to the film. And I do think that as a whole, there's not really too much here to discuss about when it comes to the Three Caballeros. And I do think that's why this week's only going to be a very smaller episode. It's only looking at about 20 minutes. So it's a nice, snappy one. I think next week will be a nice, snappy one as well when it comes to Melody Time or Make Music Mine. I can't remember which one's next. There's a few things I've got whirling in the works for some other bonus episodes coming up that you'll find out about on socials as always. So there's some things this week's bonus episode is all about my thoughts, predictions for 2026. So please be on the lookout for that when it drops. On Thursday, I'm going to try and make Thursday bonus episode day, just to make it a little bit consistent. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find me on Instagram at Straight Until Disney Pod. You can email me your thoughts at straightuntildisneypod@gmail.com. And I'd like to just